everyone, I'm Rachel Poley here with Ari Meglin, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. We are on episode 108, and this week's question is, should you have a writing buddy? But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening so you never miss a show. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, write a review, share it with friends, and all that fun stuff. So what exactly is a writing buddy? I don't think anybody knew. I'm pretty sure everybody knows this term, the term writing buddy, but it's someone you can share your work with, someone who helps to keep you accountable, like a cheerleader and also a critic, just somebody to keep you going forward with your writing work. Because we all know how difficult it is for us to actually write. We all say we love it and then we all hate it at the same time. And writing is just hard in general. So it's obviously better to do it with a friend.
Okay, so the question with writing buddies, it probably comes with how do you find them? Because it was brilliant having someone who's a cheerleader and a critic and everything. But there's that kind of like, okay, how do I find someone who is going to be that awesome person to spur you on and who you can spur on as well, who can keep you accountable, who can make you feel good about being a writer, but also, keep you from drifting off and doing these silly things. How do you find them? Well, first of all, this is my personal opinion. I don't go out looking for writing buddies. I know there are groups that you can go to that are like set up for like, find a writing buddy to be your accountability buddy. That is not something I do, which you can. As I said, there are groups, there's some Facebook groups, and there's some I'm sure there's places on Tumblr or Instagram where you can find people and that are specific to becoming, people looking for writing buddies. I even think, I might be wrong, that NaNoWriMo has some part where you can connect to people.
Yes. Yep.
Is that right? Yeah. So there are ways where you can literally go out and look specifically for a writing buddy. I personally just like to meet other writers. And what you find is when you meet other writers and you connect with them, especially if they write something similar or if they write something that you really like, even if it's not what you write, and you get on really well and you sort of connect, they usually make a really good writing buddy. So rather than trying to find a specific writing buddy, I personally think it's better just to go out and try and connect with writers, comment on their things, comment on their posts, look into their websites, read about what they're writing, show interest. Obviously, if you have interest, don't fake it. We don't want any of that nonsense. And then as you build that kind of rapport, you can start reaching out to them and saying like, oh, I really love what you write. I hope we could chat about it sometimes. And it kind of comes naturally because let's be honest, we might all be a little bit crazy with our writing. Some of us might be introverted and feel a bit uncomfortable talking to each other. But we all love our work. And there is a little part of us that does like kind of getting excited about it and having other people get excited about it. And that only happens if you share it or if you talk about it. So even just putting a bit on your website about what you write and then checking other people's websites about what they write and then reaching out to them. And yes, I know that's stressful for writers, isn't it? Reaching out. We'd just like to send them a note under their door. Hi, I like your stuff. But you can't. You have to do more. You have to DM them. You have to leave comments. You have to be willing to chat to them. It's like get out of your comfort zone. So yeah, I think finding the writing community, I mean, you can simply just typing in writing community as a hashtag will pull up everybody in the writing community on any social media. That's a good way. Again, depending on what you write or even your age range can take you to a different social media. Like TikTok is still very much a young person's game. So if you want to find writers on TikTok, that's the younger people. If you want older people, it's Facebook. If you want kind of middle of the road, there's your Twitter and your Instagram. There's probably a lot of other social media places, but I can't even think of any because those are the only ones I even know about these days. But yeah, that's where you find them the best. That's where you connect with people on another level and then build a friendship with them. Don't just rush up to people going, oh my God, I love your stuff. Will you read my stuff and be my buddy? It's a little creepy. Nobody wants that.
I mean, honestly, how do you find a writing buddy? Ari said it so nicely. I was going to say you could just pick people off the street. See if that works for you. You never know. But on a serious note, like everything Ari said is totally true. if you want to get a writing buddy, you need to like warm up to other writers, and you need to let them warm up to you as well. You can't, as Ari said, you can't just like reach out to somebody and be like, hey, you want to be my writing buddy? Some people do that actually. And if it works for them, great. And if people agree, awesome. For me personally, I would like to actually meet the other writers like Ari and just build a friendship. So that way, if you build that friendship with the other writers, then you can feel close enough to share your work with them. Like Ari and I, we write different stuff, but I would give her my work in a heartbeat, and because I value Ari's opinion, and she's an excellent writer. And whether she wants to read it or not, I would give it to her, because that's how our relationship works.
You're technically saying I'm opinionated. I get it. No. And I am. And I would read it because I want to read it. You have to finish it
in a good way. That's what I meant. I wasn't throwing shade at you. Although we've tried to be accountability buddies with each other a couple of times, but neither one of us stick with it. So we're both horrible.
Yeah, we don't do that part, but we are cheerleaders for each other. And we gripe at each other for not finishing.
Yeah.
So
not that we listen to each other.
No. We're too close. We're too good friends to be the point where it's like, I'm not listening to you, silly.
Right, exactly. Yep. That's true. Because one of the ways that's actually one of the great things about running this podcast is because it's easy for us to find writers. We have guests on this podcast, and a few of them we keep in touch with. We've kept in touch with people who used to play the game when it was a hashtag game on Twitter. And that's a great way to build friendships with other writers. You use social media, you use hashtag games, you listen to podcasts and things like that. There was something else I was going to say to that. I already mentioned NaNoWriMo. Like, you can go on to different writing challenges, and NaNoWriMo specifically has forums that you can go on to, and they have like age groups, they have different genres, and you could just go in and talk to people. And at some point, you're going to click with someone at some point, and you can build a friendship on there through the forums. You can start DMs with each other. And then eventually over time, you can be like, hey, why don't we swap stories and give each other feedback? Which brings me to our final point. So what makes a good writing buddy? First, I'm going to start off and say that it's a two-way street. I think we've mentioned this in a recent podcast episode, but I can't remember what it was. You don't want to waste other people's time. If you swap novels with somebody and you say, hey, I'll read this within a month, read it in a month. If something comes up, email them ASAP and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, this is going to take a little longer. If you want someone else to read your work, and you can say, oh, I'll have this to you by May 1st. And then it's July and you're still emailing them being like, oh, sorry, I'm still working on it. It's not fair to that person, because you want it to be even. You give them your work, they give you their work, and then you guys decide on a time frame to read and critique and give feedback, and you just go from there. It's a two-way street. You can't expect people to read your work and then you don't read their work in return, unless, sometimes that happens. Like beta readers, for example, they're more than happy to read other people's work, and sometimes they don't necessarily swap their own work with those people. So that's a different story. A writing buddy is pretty much different from a beta reader. A writing buddy is, like I said, it's a two-way street. It's a relationship. It's a working relationship, and it's a friendship between two writers. With that said, trust is a huge, huge component of a good writing buddy. It's so easy to give anyone your novel and then have them just put their name on it, copy and paste, and submit it somewhere. I don't know how often that happens. I've seen it happen with like plenty of blogs and websites. Like, plagiarism is pretty huge on the internet. When it comes to novels, I don't know how often that happens, but I'm sure it has happened. So you definitely want to make sure that you know your writing buddy pretty well before you go ahead and swap your life's work with them. Finally, another thing that makes a good writing buddy is if you guys write similar genres and in similar age groups and things like that. You can certainly have a writing buddy that writes in a different genre than you or something like that, as long as you have interest in it and they have interest in yours. And you guys are close enough that you can put aside your genre differences where you can read their work as a reader, but also as a fellow writer. A good writing buddy is whoever you feel works well with you. And if you're a good friend, I personally like to write the same type of prose. Like I know nothing about screenplays, so if I had a writing buddy and I gave them my novel and they gave me a screenplay, I wouldn't know what to do with it. So for me personally, I think it would be great to be writing like the same thing. If one of you has a novel and the other has a novella, I mean, that's fine. It's similar enough. It's just the length. But different, like completely different writing pieces like that, I find that might be tricky. It's doable, but for me personally, I would want to have someone who has like the similar prose as I do. Oh, and also a writing buddy that has different strengths and weaknesses than me. Obviously, everybody is different. You can't just like go looking for a writing buddy and being like, do you suck at description? I can help. You can't like introduce yourself that way. That's not, that doesn't fly. But on the other hand, like for me personally, my strength is dialogue. So if I had someone who had a strength in description, that would be great because they could really, really give my novel a boost and they could help me on that front. And if they struggle with dialogue, I could help them in return.
No, I think that is great. Like you said, it doesn't have to be exactly, because as you said, you write mystery and I write fantasy. I love reading mystery. I don't do it as often as I used to, but I still love mystery. I'm one of those people that almost never guesses who did it. If it's like a whodunit one, I am rubbish. I will assume it's everybody, and it's always somebody even I didn't even think of. So I love reading things like that because I'm rubbish at guessing. And I do know that you have read fantasy, so I think we do make quite a good team. So I can fling my novel at you when it's finished, if it ever gets finished. But the thing that you said about the two-way street, that is so important. I have been approached before now by people who wanted my assistance and have sent me their stuff and have been like, oh yeah, you can, when you sort yours, you can send it to me. And then, it started off with just like small pieces of just, oh, can you help with this? Can you help with that? And then it suddenly became this constant, without even checking to see if I was ready to take on more things just kept turning up. And it's like, have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? And it's like, I didn't think we'd agreed to do a full-on beta read. Like a writing buddy is not the same as a beta reader. They can do the same thing. But if you're looking for a beta reader, that is something separate. If you're looking for a writing buddy and that writing buddy will help us and be a beta reader at the same time, that's fine. But a writing buddy isn't just a beta reader. So I want to clarify that. And I have had people where it's just felt like they took advantage of my goodwill. And especially because I wasn't ready to send anything. And to be honest, some of the people who asked me, I was just trying to be nice, and they're not the people I would have sent my own work to, just because I don't know them well enough, or they write and read things that are nothing like mine. So it would be pointless to send them because they're not my audience. And it's like, yeah, I don't mind helping with this one scene that you're struggling with. And suddenly 40 scenes later, I'm still in it. And I'm thinking, I don't remember agreeing to being your full-on critique partner or beta reader. So with anything to do with writing, you should not monopolize somebody else's time. You should definitely see it as a two-way street, and not just I'm going to send you my entire manuscript, whether you ask for it or not. And when you're ready, you might want to send me yours, but I'll check with you and maybe I'll have time. I don't know. It can be a little bit of an awkward situation. So yeah, definitely be aware that it should be a two-way street. Don't monopolize people's time, and do check in to make sure your writing buddy is in the right space before you start sending them things. I mean, writing buddies can be great for bouncing ideas off them, fixing plot holes. If you feel like crap and you think that there's no reason that your writing should be publish because it's rubbish. A writing buddy is someone who will be able to talk you through why you think that and maybe analyze your work with you to sort of see the good in it. But again, they shouldn't be your therapist. They shouldn't be your constant cheerleader where you're not giving anything back. And it can get like that. This is why I always think it's better to do it through friendship. You start as a friend. You connect with them because you're interested in them as a person and as they're writing, not just for what you can get from them. And then you build up that connection. And then you decide equally together that you're writing buddies. Don't just sort of like start throwing them your work and not letting them know that they've become your writing buddy. It's like secretly they're your writing buddy and they didn't know. I think if you do that, if you become friends with people, I think it kind of works naturally, that you sort of build a trust already. You kind of start feeling better with the two-way street. You obviously will pick people that you like their work, you connect with their genre. And most writers do talk about what they read, so they'll let you know if that's the sort of thing that they like. But yeah, it's an interesting one, is writing buddies, because you have to trust people. And we're not really very trustworthy as writers because we do hear about plagiarism. And obviously there's the tales where writers have sent out their manuscript to 3 or 4 people and then one of them's posted it online. And the way to get around that is to change one thing in each manuscript, depending on who you send it to, and make a note of, well, in this manuscript, I made this character have blonde hair. And in this manuscript, this character's name was, John. And in this, and that way, if it comes up online, you know who sold you out. So it does make it hard to trust. But if you make friends with people and you connect with them properly, I don't know, I think it's a lot easier to get through that than if you just go into a writing group and say, I need a writing buddy. I think the risks are higher. But that's just my opinion. I might be wrong. We could get a flood of comments from people who joined writing groups, made writing buddies like that, and have been brilliant the whole time. So it is just a personal thought.
I like what you said earlier, where you said if you build a friendship with another writer, becoming their writing buddy will happen naturally. I really like that term, especially because if you're going to have a writing buddy, the relationship should be natural. So that way, if it's natural, then yes, you have that trust there. And yes, you have that good, solid foundation of not just a friendship, but also a working relationship.
I've seen it in the past where some new writers have tried to get on the good side and connect with very well-known writers, even like indie writers who are maybe very popular on YouTube or TikTok or anything. I think in this kind of like hope that, hey, I'll get in with the popular person and they'll be my writing buddy. There is something to be said about finding a writing buddy on your level. If you are a brand new writer, I don't think it's the smartest idea to try and become writing buddies with someone who's got like 20 books behind them and has become very strong in their thing. Yes, they can help elevate you if they became your writing buddy. But again, we're talking two-way street. We're talking, you both need to be able to bring something to the buddiness of this group. If the dynamic is one person is boosting the other one and the other person is not able to give much back to the writing buddy, it does make things quite unequal. And as I said, I have seen, all you have to do is go on comments of certain videos where people are like, oh, could we be writing buddies? And would you, help me brainstorm my first book? And it's like, you're talking to someone who's got 10 books behind them and is a full-time, even, full-time indie author, and you're trying to get in. And I appreciate that there's this strangeness that some people have, especially, some of the younger writers, where it's almost like getting in with the popular crowd. But that's kind of a waste of time, because the likelihood is this full-time author is not going to become your writing buddy if you're still writing your first book and haven't kind of moved on or got much experience behind you, especially if you've just started writing. So maybe think about going for people in the same sort of level that you're at. If they're just starting their writing journey and you're just starting your writing journey, if you've been writing for a good few years, there you go again. If you've not been published, find someone else who maybe hasn't been published, rather than going and trying to find someone who's, as I said, got a massive catalog behind them. I don't know. It's again, that's something just to think about.
No, I think that's a good point though, because obviously that can happen. And if it does happen with you, then great. But again, it is a two-way street. You want to both be able to bring something to the table. You want to learn from them and you want them to learn from you. And I find it can probably be very easy to get jealous of your writing buddy, especially like even if you are on the same level and your writing buddy gets published before you do. We all kind of get it. We get like a twinge of jealousy, even if we don't mean to. And it's not to say that we're not happy for our writing buddy. And we also have imposter syndrome. We compare ourselves to other writers all the time. So that's something else you got to be careful of as well, because if you want to have a writing buddy who has 20 books published and you've got nothing published, well, then when they just kind of breeze on through with their 21st and you're still struggling with your book and a half, like it's very easy to like friction can happen, and it's easy to get into like arguments and stuff. So you want to be careful with that, and you definitely want to pick and choose your writing buddies in a nice way. I mean that nicely.
That's also made me think personality is important, because obviously if you're quite a meek person who doesn't feel very comfortable maybe offering critique, and you're trying to become writing buddies with someone with a lot of confidence, like a very confident personality, you might find that if you're a lot meeker, that you're unwilling to say certain things because maybe you feel uncomfortable or you're worried you're going to offend. And again, that won't sort of connect. It's a weird one. It sounds like we're saying, right, well, you have to make sure that they write the same thing and they're at the same level and the same personality, but it is kind of important. I mean, technically, most friendships are people who are similar to each other. So you don't want to be trying to being writing buddies with someone who angers really easily or does not take criticism well from anybody if you feel that you're quite comfortable giving lots and lots of criticism. We don't like people like that anyway, but no, I'm joking. But yeah, so again, you don't want anyone where your personalities are going to like scrape against each other. So even if you find someone and you start being writing buddies, if it doesn't feel right, you should feel comfortable enough to step back and say, you know what, I like this person as a friend. I don't want them as a writing buddy. I don't feel comfortable having that. It's not written in stone. If you make friends and become writing buddies, if you don't feel that what they're giving to your novel is worth it, if you don't feel that they're giving you the same time, or maybe your personalities are scratching against each other, it's okay. It doesn't have to end the friendship, but maybe step back from the writing buddy aspect. You're not tied in for life like that with anything. So just a little thought.
So with that said, we have given some, positives and kind of somewhat negatives of having a writing buddy. I mean, in the long run, should you have a writing buddy? Yes, we think you should. Or I think you should. I don't know. Ari, do you think people should have a writing buddy?
I do. I do think it can help make you grow as a writer. Yes.
Okay. So there you go. In a nutshell, should you have a writing buddy? Yes, we think you should. Because writing is a very lonely thing. So it's always good to have a writing buddy and to kind of push you forward and build you up, but also break you down a little bit so that you can build up that thick skin. But just remember to have a friendship with them first before you decide to be writing buddies with them. And I understand that that's not always the way that people go. Some people will just reach out and be like, hey, you want to be a writing buddy? And they'll be like, okay, cool, great. If that works for you, then fine. We just personally prefer to have a friend before writing buddy. So with all of that said, we're going to turn it over to you guys. Do you have a writing buddy? And if you do, feel free to shout them out in the comments below. Give them a little bit of love. If you want more of the podcast, then be sure to follow us on Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And for as little as $1 a month, you can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Merry Writer Podcast for bonus content. It helps keep the show going, so we really appreciate the support. But in the meantime, tune in every Wednesday for a new episode of the Merry Writer Podcast, where we ask all the right questions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Excessive Caffeine. We drink a lot. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.